Hello and welcome to my video demonstrating generative ambient music on the Sonicware Liven XFM. So there seems to have been a lot of interest generically in generative music and in ambient music, and I've been wondering how that applies to FM synths, especially to the Sonicware Liven XFM. I understand that a lot of that type of music is driven by effects, especially reverb. The reverb on this unit is not the best reverb that I've heard, but I think the sequencer and the features that that provides should bring us some interesting opportunities in making generative music and hopefully some interesting ambience. So without further ado, let's clear the pattern. You may note, possibly not that visible, but the volume is turned down fairly low here. I've realized that this volume control is effectively a digital volume control. So when it's turned to the maximum, the sums of the outputs of the tracks, if the track volumes are turned up, it is possible to clip between all of those things. So having this master volume lower potentially reduces the amount of fidelity at the output. Not appreciably or anything that I've been able to notice, but it makes sure that we have plenty of headroom, and I think headroom is going to be important here. So anyway, when I'm thinking of a piece of music here, I'm imagining that we're going to have something like a pad on the first track. I'm going to have something maybe in the bass register on the second, possibly a bell or some other accent on the third, and something like a melody on the fourth. And I'm going to try and use different techniques and features of the device to add some interest to those things by way of generative or pseudo-generative methods. I'm going to use only built-in patches, and I'm not going to use any of the morphing sound engines, so hopefully this is going to be something that a beginner could follow along with if they wanted. So let's get started. First track is our chords, so it's going to be in polyphonic mode. I'm going to set the synth engine to library because I'm just going to be picking patches. So let's pick a patch. And the first one's going to be a pad, so let's go in the pad bank and let's listen to some. So this sounds quite bright, but I'm interested in filtering it down. So first thing I want is a softer attack, so I'm going to turn the attack knob in the positive direction to get some attack, and then I'm going to experiment with a color knob. So I left some brightness in there so I can filter that out. How am I going to filter? I'm going to have a low pass filter with a rising and falling envelope. As you maybe seen me do before, I'm going to turn the cutoff down, the resonance up, set the depth to a non-zero amount, and then I'm going to experiment figuring out what the envelope length needs to be. Okay, I may tweak it once I get the sequence running. Turn the resonance back down. Okay, sounds pretty good. We're going to want some effects here. As I mentioned, the reverb is not the greatest. You'd probably be better off using an external one, but I think in this case I'm trying to stay in the device. I'm setting the reverb length. I'm setting the release length. Now I'm going to add some reverb. So one thing I might experiment with here is to set the send level on the reverb very high and turn the actual level of the instrument low. So as Okay, I quite like how that's sounding. So now I'm going to try and place some chords here. I'm thinking since it's ambient, but since I've only got 6 voices, I'm going to have to keep the chord voicings relatively tight. So 3 notes per chord. So let's think about what I'm going to do here. Maybe something like that. So okay, I had tie on, so okay, I think that sounds fine as a chord progression. I think I'm going to want this to be playing much slower, so let's go into the note length and set this to see what it's like at quarter. Okay, so one thing I might like to do actually is remove the last one of each of these beats from each of these bars and rely on the release. So now the first of the generative aspects that I was talking about. One thing I might do is try and, let's see, set that a bit lower, that a little higher. Use some of the randomization. So what this is going to do is it's going to randomize the trigger that starts the notes, but they believe they're all going to end at the same point. So what that'll mean is if the probability is lower than 100%, then not all of the notes are going to sound initially, and then some of them will come in and some of them will come in. So I'm tempted actually to parameter lock to parameter lock 100% probability for the third beat, and then select, say, 80% probability for the second one, and then select 65% probability. Okay, let's see how that works. So the probability applies to each note in the chord independently. I may even decrease the probability on that first beat. Let's take it down all the way to 55. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to randomize the order of these chords. So one of the interesting features here is this random step feature. And what this means is when randomization is enabled, normal randomization, you may expect that it would just pick the steps in random order to play. And that corresponds to 1 here. If we set it to 2, it's going to pick sets of 2 and it's going to play both of them. If we set it to 4, it will pick sets of 4. So given that each one of these chords is 4 beats, if I play, turn on randomization and play, so we're on this chord, this chord, having heard that, I think I might want to change this chord. So Maybe that's better chord. Okay, and now having deleted that, I just eliminated those probabilities that I was setting. So let's set them back. 85 and 55. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. So that gives us a sort of pad foundation to work from. So the next part I said I was going to make is something that is in the bass register. So I've only wanted to use one note at a time. There seems to be some sort of firmware bug where in mono mode, if you record too many notes, then it can cause a sort of glitch in the lower notes. So I'm going to leave it in legato mode, which seems to work correctly. In this case, it's irrelevant to what I'm playing. So let's go to the library engine and let's pick percussion. So I remember liking this. Add a filter, a kind of plucky falling filter. So let's listen to it. Okay, so I think I might have this as a regular beat going on. So let me try. Yeah, so I feel like I only want it to play once per bar. So I'm going to set the note length to 1, which is 1 bar. And then I'm going to only set this to be 4 steps long. So what I want to do here is I want it to select between 2 notes when it plays, but I want it to be more likely to pick one than the other. So what I'm going to do, so I've selected 3 of the steps all playing this C, 1 of the steps playing this G, and I'm going to turn on random step 1. I want the release to be turned right up here. How longer? Okay, I feel like I'd like that to pan a little bit. Now I can record a pan value per step, and it's playing in random order, so it's going to jump around. Since it's in the bass, I'm going to leave it near the middle, so I'm just going to set these 4 values as a sort of pan range near the middle. So say, I don't know, 20, 8, 8, 20. So hopefully you could hear that wasn't center panned in the stereo field anymore. Okay, so the next element I was talking about adding was something a bit like a bell. So let's go for Library Engine, and there's, I believe, a bell selection, so let's listen to some. So I'm going to see how that sounds. So what I'm thinking about here is playing that pattern in a 6-step fashion such that it will phase out with the rest of the things that are playing. So I'm going to set the length down to 6, and then I'm going to play that. I'm going to set this also to legato. Obviously it's playing too fast at the moment. I might try some of the other bell sounds just to see how they work. So I quite like this bell sound, but I feel like maybe it's played in too high a register now. So I'm going to replace these with the same. And I'm going to add a filter. Sounds better. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the first beat to a 100% probability, and then set the rest of them to say 70% probability, so only some of them are going to fire here. Okay, I was just tweaking the level there, just so it sounds a little better. Probably turn the probabilities up a bit. Okay, so the final part that I was going to play is a melody. And this is going to use a trick which I've used in the past, which is anyone who listened to my music theory series will know that certain notes in certain scales have a stronger harmonic comfort in there than others. So what I'm going to do is, much the same way in the bass I repeated notes to increase their probability of playing, I'm going to do the same here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 4 of the C's, I'm going to have 3 of the G and the F's, I'm going to have 2 each of the E flat and the B flats, and 1 each of the D and the A flat. So okay, so hopefully that's going to be okay. I haven't picked the sound yet, so let's pick a sound. What type of sound is this going to be? Maybe a keys sound would be good. First, going back to this one, I was just thinking it might be interesting to pick it at random in groups of 2, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to add some pan to it. So that just has things moving around a little more. So I like how this is sounding. Now I'm going to set a probability, and finally a random step to 1. Okay, so now I think I'd just like to add some pan here. I'm going to try and effectively randomize the pan, so we'll see how that goes in practice. I'm going to experiment with a different Okay, so now I'm going to try and balance the parts. I'm already thinking the pads could be a bit louder. If I turn the pads up too loud, then they're going to cause the reverb to clip, because I set a really high send level. So I think that's fine. The bass part, I think the level is balanced. So let's try and... I'm tempted to put a high pass filter on this. Okay, so I think we've got to something that is sounding reasonable. It's using randomization combined with specially written sequences to give randomness, but with a measure of control, which I think is the cornerstone of generative music. We've got chords varying, we've got something in the bass, something in the mids, something in the treble, so I think it's relatively well balanced. I think the reverb is not quite as big and washy as I'd like, but I'm not sure it'll really... Okay, so I extended it out a little bit and it still doesn't sound too bad, so I think that's a good sign. But in practice, if I were to turn this into a track, I wouldn't simply play it like this. I would want to perform it. So how would I perform it? Well, one of the ways to perform would be using track mutes, but I feel like it would be much more interesting to perform if I was adjusting the levels and the reverb send levels and the cutoff. This is a bit of a pain to do on this device because I'd have to be switching between the tracks, so my preferred approach to doing this would probably be to getting an external MIDI controller and map the controls so as I have a pair of faders corresponding to each one of the tracks. So I'd have 8 faders there, and between the faders I think I would be able to get some interesting performance. So for example on the pad one, so I have some capacity to do something which might be interesting there. And I think I have some comparable capacity to do something interesting with the other parts here. And my general feeling is add an external effect on this, and between the internal effects, between the performance features that I described, possibly combined with muting the individual tracks, you would have something which was very listenable at the very least. And it was all done using factory presets and a relatively surface level using of the device. Moreover, I didn't have to get out the FM edit overlay. So let me turn this down. So I think we've achieved what we wanted to achieve here. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope you will join me for some more of my videos. But in any case, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching today, and goodbye.